Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Superman Lois Season 3, and this is going to be my review for Episode 3, otherwise entitled In Cold Blood, I think it was called, but of course, spoiler for everything in this episode. We're going to go over it all, including some big reveals, especially one right towards the end, which might set up quite a lot going forward into the season, and yeah, so if you've not watched the episode, go away. If you have watched the episode, you are continuing on. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this episode, what you love, what you hate, favorite parts, everything like that. Any theories and predictions moving forward? Always curious to read what you guys are thinking. Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, you enjoyed the episode, want to show support, drop a like on the video. It takes 2 seconds. So last episode, we of course found out that Lois has stage 3 breast cancer, with Bruno Mannheim also flexing, how much more control on Metropolis he has than I guess they expected, at least than I expected it as well. But we also, right towards the end of the episode, said that Onomatopoeia and Bruno Mannheim learned that John Henry Irons is just chilling out in Smallville after an altercation that Onomatopoeia had with Lana and John at the mayor's office. Though the big thing is they killed him. It's revealed that they were the ones that specifically killed him, or Onomatopoeia was the one that specifically killed this Earth's John Henry Irons. So how is there one randomly just walking around in Smallville now? Big mystery. But overall, this episode, I think we knew going into it is going to be dealing with the news with Lois from last episode, how they jump into it, and just, the first steps of her, step-by-step process in regards to treating what she's being diagnosed with. And I think this episode did it in a very, probably realistic way. Like, once again, I have to state, I've never gone through anything where I know someone that's gone through any sort of a cancer treatment and, chemotherapy or anything like that. So I'm lucky enough to say I haven't had to go through that myself or know a loved one that's gone through that. So I don't know the day-to-day and personal stuff around it all. But it seemed like a very realistic way that someone would maybe not like intentionally and always just try and push it to the side and completely ignore it, but it constantly being in the back of their head that they're trying to shove it away by going to do other things and keep themselves busy like Lois did in this episode. So from what I can tell, it did it in a very realistic way that you would see in your day-to-day life with other people that are diagnosed with cancer and would go through this treatment and stuff like that. So this episode is like really dealing with that, but it also allows the story to progress as well. It's not just like some random individual thing, or this is just Lois dealing with this and avoiding that. It plays into the main storyline, which I think was done really, really well. And even the sideline stuff with stuff going on with like Jonathan and stuff, I am wondering if that's also playing into the main storyline, but that's something that we have to wait another episode or two, I think, to see if that's actually folding into the main storyline or not. I'm not 100% sure at the moment, but we'll wait and see. Yeah, let's just get into the breakdown of this episode. So the episode starts with Clark waking up, apparently, to hear Lois screaming all the way in the streets of Metropolis. God, nighttime trip much? With the city crumbling around him as he's flying there, and the screams of everyone else around him drowning out Lois's cries for help, with Superman finding Lois and saving her just before she is crushed by the globe of the Daily Planet. But this was just a nightmare, so no worries there, Superman, but why are you having these nightmares? Now, we do have Lois ringing Lucy to tell about her, tell her about like her cancer diagnosis. Now, I think that was just the actress who plays Lucy just doing a voice clip, because obviously she wasn't actually in the episode, but just doing a voice clip, so they might have just got her to record on her phone as well, I'm not too sure. But this just leads to Lois telling the others of note within Smallville, this is like the news of her cancer diagnosis, with her father bringing up the possibility of something at the Fortress of Solitude maybe being able to help, but apparently there isn't anything there that can do this, with Lois actually starting chemotherapy and other procedures, or at least being booked in to do those in the coming week. Now, there is an example of like John Henry throughout this episode as being like very, not standoffish, but just like, because ever since like Natalie's come in, he's just like, this is not our Earth. Sam is not your granddad. Lois isn't your mother. Lois is not my wife. He's being very standoffish in regards to the relationships, if that makes sense there. So you see that continue as well when like he even gets like the news about like Lois, and like he's talking to Lana about it. It's just like, hey, it's just, I feel bad, but hey, she's not my wife, so I don't really care that much. It just seems a bit off. But obviously that's him being sheltered off, and also with some stuff with Natalie there as well, which John does sort of change as the episode goes on. I'm assuming we'll see change more throughout the season, I guess, maybe. But Lois does start work on the Bruno Mannheim case with Chrissy in order for Chrissy to be able to tackle it further and be the lead of it, as Lois does go through her treatment because she can't be, focusing so much time on it. But this gets so hectic that apparently Lois misses her first treatment due to being swept up with the investigation, where they do actually find some blood at the scene of one of the medical centers they're looking into, which could help them with their lead, which leads to a big reveal later in the episode. Now, General Lane is not happy about Clark allowing Lois to put this case and work over her health, and is sort of like pushing Clark to, put his foot down and make sure Lois, make sure she puts her health above everything else. Now, Natalie wants to gift her mother's watch, her Lois from her Earth. She wants to give that watch to Lois. So giving her Lois's watch to our Lois, if that makes sense, which John Henry is not happy with. And this plays further into Natalie's sort of like struggle with belonging to this Earth, like we saw play on from, was it last episode or episode 1, when Sam took her to the movies and he was just trying to get into the DoD Academy, and she was really just trying to connect with who she sees as her granddad. Now, obviously, this is a struggle for Natalie throughout the episode, and even at the end of the episode, I don't think it's really appeased too much. But I think that's just setting stuff up. Like, I think she thought that maybe giving this watch to Lois would sort of like make her feel something. And by the end of the episode, it feels like that's not the case at all. So I am curious to see where they head with Natalie in this season. I've seen people saying that she doesn't have really a storyline. I think we've been seeing the storyline play out since last season, but just one of those ones that's very character driven. So I'm very in like just more personality and like relationship driven. So I'm very curious to see where that goes going forward, especially over the next couple of episodes following this watch, thing. Now, one of the storylines I didn't really think was happening in this episode was when Jonathan drops his girlfriend Candice off at, her home, and she has a run-in with her father. Now, last season, we were told Candice's father was struggling with a heart condition, I think it was, or something like that. And that's why Candice was dealing in the whole X-Kryptonite business and selling it to students at school in order to keep them afloat. But he seemed suspicious as hell when he was hanging out on the porch there. And I was wondering, is he going to be revealed as like a main player in the X-Kryptonite stuff or just some other criminal stuff in general? He just seemed sus as hell, with us later seeing Jonathan getting his truck stolen, which also had Natalie's watch she was planning on giving to Lois. And, Candice is very angry that Jonathan would accuse her father of stealing it, which you can sort of understand. But at the same time, in the back of her head, she'd be like, oh, yeah, he probably did do it, didn't he? But the retrieval scene that they did was fun. Obviously, we find out it's one of those, like, sort of like parts sort of things. Like, they steal the cars, take all the good parts out, put them together, everything. I know what you'd call them. One of those, like, dodgy workshop sort of things. But yeah, the whole scene where like they use the smoke bomb and they go in, I thought was really, really cool and fun. And even the bit where Jonathan was driving away, I thought was pretty cool. Now, Clark does have another nightmare throughout the episode, very similar to the opening one of this episode, but this time he doesn't get to Lois in time and she is crushed. And this then leads to them in this waiting room, which was, I thought was pretty funny. Just like, oh, it seemed like a very couple thing, it's like a very couple thing to do. Oh, my seat's uncomfortable. Do you want to swap? It's like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And just the music and stuff, I thought was pretty funny. But Clark has to leave to be Superman. And this leaves Lois alone, which has her sort of like stewing in her own thoughts. You can sort of just see her overthinking things in her head and all the noise and stuff. And it ends with her bailing on another appointment and chasing the case again, which does frustrate Chrissy a lot, which leads Lois and Chrissy going inside another medical center, which is then entered by goons. Now, of course, this is danger. And to make things worse, the freezer they enter is, I think it's lead lined, so Superman doesn't know, that's where they are, can't hear them, and they can't contact him, everything like that. I think it was lead lined. I don't know if they said it in the episode. I'm just assuming that. Now, we do have Lois sort of like waiting for the goons to enter the freezer because they can hear them. It's like, well, eventually they're going to come here because look at all this blood that's in here. So, of course, they're eventually going to get there. And she does draw their attention, so Chrissy then can sort of like contact Superman with him saving them. But also, he then gets into a fight with Intergang. We find that they're Intergang, and they're super powerful weapons that are quite useful against him. We do get Steel coming to the rescue with the guy who fought Superman just blowing up the medical center to cover the evidence. But of course, we get to see like sort of the upgrades with Intergang here, and I think we're going to see more and more of them play out and appear throughout the season. Obviously, Bruno Mannheim's working alongside them, but I think we're seeing a bit of an upgrade with Intergang. I do wonder if we're going to find out if there's any sort of like person working with them. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but yeah, Superman definitely struggled against just one guy with that one pair of like kryptonite gauntlets. So you wouldn't want 2 or 3 people being there. I think Superman might have been screwed. Now, one thing I was not expecting in this episode was that confrontation between Sarah and Lana after Kyle sort of starts like poking around her business at the mayor's office and asking too many questions about the security and just her personal life because he's not living in the house anymore. With Lana slapping Sarah after she doesn't give in to her demands in regards to what she does and doesn't tell her father. Now I was like, whoa, like what the hell? I wasn't expecting that at all. Just like that slap, you felt it. And Lana tries to apologize, but there's just no budging from Sarah, who by the end of the episode we see her go to meet her father or try and find her father at the diner. So there's no reconciliation between those two by the end of this episode in regards to Sarah and Lana. So I'm very, very interested to see where that goes, because that was pretty brutal. And you can tell Lana regretted it, but at the same time, he still did it. And it only happened like a bit ago. So yeah, there's some bottling frustration there within Lana that needs to be sorted out. Now we do have Clark talking to Lois about the overall events of this episode and her illness, which was a great scene. That whole scene was great between them two, and just Lois sort of going over what's been going through her head, and that it's not like she's forgotten she's got cancer. It's been in her head nonstop, and it's about other things sort of being used to overcome that constant thought. Now Lois does get a call from her father, who tested the blood that we had at both like the scene, the earlier scene with those splats there, and then also the blood bags. And we learn, well, I don't think it's actually the blood bags, or maybe one blood bag, I can't remember. But we learn that it's Superman's blood. So that's a big reveal. This is Superman's blood. Now, I'm very interested to see when they would have got this blood. I'm assuming we're going to get a flashback of sorts as to when this would have happened. Or maybe it's just from like random scenes of crimes where Superman might have been cut. But I don't know. I'm interested to see when we find out where the blood stuff came from. I remember there was the stuff from the DOD in season 1 where they did something with Superman's blood, but I can't remember if it wouldn't have been that much blood. So like, I'm very interested to see what the connection there is and if there's like the history behind it. But this is then when we cut to the doctor who's been working with Bruno Mannheim, who says they have pushed Atom Man, aka Henry Miller, as far as he can be pushed, with the mercenary that's been working for Mannheim telling them to find someone they can push further. So someone that's, body isn't just going to cease out and stop at a certain point. He was obviously looking like Darth Vader in that goddamn tank that he was floating in. But who are they going to get? I don't know who I guess they're going to have to get someone that's superpowered, if not maybe Kryptonian. I don't know. Who the hell are they going to get? Now, we did get Jonathan not blaming Candice for, what happened in this episode and for what her father did, and just understands why she would defend her father. It makes sense. But Jonathan does begin to open up about what happened in Metropolis last episode with his ex-girlfriend. We sort of cut off from there, but I guess it's just like, hey, well, we know what he's going to say. Well, I guess we'll pick up with the next episode, and if there's any sort of revelations there, I don't know. But I thought the end scene for this episode was pretty nice, and that's Lois sort of being given the watch, specifically by Natalie, but just everyone's there just watching upon it. And she goes to her first proper treatment with Clark. But it's at this point, as I was saying earlier in the video, where you see Natalie's face sort of like, there's not a lot of satisfaction doing that. And, Lois goes off and starts hanging, just walks off with her family while Natalie and John are left behind. And I am just wondering how that's going to play out, just like this lack of a sense of belonging and stuff like that. I just feel like that's going to be grinding in Natalie's gears, because John was different. John sort of like, he was by himself for ages, and the way he was in season 1. Like, I just don't think Natalie's come to terms with what this earth is, and that these relationships that she had just aren't there, and these are completely different people. So I just wonder how that's going to play out for the rest of the season, or at least the short term over the next handful of episodes. But yeah, you feel for Natalie. You feel for Natalie at that point, because she was tried really hard and to do this gift, organize this gift, and it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of satisfaction there. But we'll wait and see how it plays out going forward. But yeah, overall, this is another great episode for this season. I think the first 2 episodes for this season were stronger episodes, but man, they were both like 9.5, if not like, they were great. Like, they were almost like perfect episodes. So this episode continued the story in a really great way, and also set up that whole thing with Superman's blood, which I'm very, very interested in. Not only just the fact they have Superman's blood, but who they're going to use it on, because apparently Henry Miller has reached the ceiling and they can't go past it. So who else are they going to use? Can't wait to see. So yeah, another great episode that's pushing this season forward along really well. And I started this season under the belief that this potentially could easily be the best season of Superman and Lois, and it's going along that way. So I'm pretty happy so far. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on this episode, what you love, what you hate, everything like that. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.